Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Graham Elgie and welcome to the AMT overview presentation for Barloworld equipment. This presentation is split into three segments. The first segment gives a general overview of iSolutions, of AMT and how it fits with Barloworld. The second one gets into more detail on the AMT functionality specifically for mark equipment. And then the third looks at the solution around EMP, component forecasting, and this more specifically the CRC forecasting of components. So we've got those three segments. The first segment, the iSolutions, the general overview, that in turn is actually split into three. The first one is just an introduction to iSolutions. The second part is a general overview of how we see AMT fits with dealers. So it's still fairly generic to dealers. And then the third segment looks at specifically what the scope of the AMT deployment is for Barloworld. So let's get into this first session. iSolutions introduction. As a company, our focus is on providing organizations with the systems and expertise to optimize asset returns. So we focus on asset management. We have AMT as our main software product, but we also provide consulting services around asset management. We develop all of our software in-house and we deploy it and support it ourselves. And we have a strong focus on capital-intensive industries, mainly equipment suppliers, and within that, mainly Caterpillar dealers, and also directly to mining companies and mining contractors. So in South Africa, people like Moolmans are a large customer of ours. We do have a global customer base with customers on almost every continent around the world. We have offices in Santiago, Denver, Johannesburg, Brisbane, and our head office is in Sydney. As a company, we've got a strong focus on Caterpillar and Caterpillar dealers. We've pretty much started the business and for the first 8 or 9 years worked exclusively with Caterpillar and Caterpillar dealers. For those of you who are aware of the analyzer software that Barloworld still use, hopefully soon to be turned off, that was our original product that we developed in Barloworld back probably 14 years ago. We're one of our first customers. We've got maybe 25 dealers around the world who are now using AMT. And Caterpillar themselves use AMT as well. Bucyrus used to be a big customer of ours, and that's obviously been transferred into Caterpillar. So through that, we're actually getting a lot more exposure within Caterpillar itself. A month ago or so, we received official endorsement from Caterpillar of AMT, so that's a good step for us, and we are working a lot more closely with Caterpillar, and certainly in the next couple of months we should have a more of a joint strategy that we can announce with CAT. I mentioned before that AMT is our main product. It's our main software product. We also have a product called Framework, which allows you to map out all your maintenance or equipment management processes, define best practices, your org structures, position descriptions and things. And we use that a lot, almost as our guidance in developing AMT. We develop AMT to support the best practice processes that we have defined within Framework. And the Framework also supports quite a bit of our consulting work. We do a lot of sort of feasibility studies, operational exercises, operational readiness, I should say, exercises, maintenance maturity reviews, and the framework forms the basis for quite a few of those consulting projects. And it also feeds into our training where apart from the AMT or the software training, we also provide training on developing maintenance managers. And again, the framework is that methodology, and the approach within the framework forms a large part of that training. The AMT footprint. Now, we'll go through this in a bit more detail later on, but really just for now at a high level, AMT is an asset management system, and it can really be split into two distinct layers. The first is your work management layer, this area here. So everything on that sort of end-to-end process of registering assets, defining your strategy. So for us that is maintenance plans, standard jobs, job instructions, feeding through into long-term planning, short-term planning and scheduling of work, performing work, capturing downtime, that work finalization is all your job feedback information, closing work orders. That sort of end-to-end work management process, AMT covers that full process. AMT does have a work order system that really supports a lot of this short-term planning and execution of work. We have a mobile device, so you can operate AMT in a disconnected mode, and it's really aimed at inspectors, your field service people. It runs on a PC or a tablet. They can electronically complete work, and then that gets checked back into AMT later. And the condition-based maintenance module allows us to integrate with condition monitoring systems and bring in condition monitoring data, interpret it to drive into that work management process. So whether it's to be driving decisions around long-term planning or creating backlog work to be performed. So that's that work management layer. The decision support layer is really the second aspect to AMT. And to understand this, one of probably the biggest differentiator as to what AMT is doing is from other maintenance systems or equipment management systems is it's performing what we call dynamic lifecycle costing. So in real time, AMT is forecasting every maintenance event for an asset till the end of its life. So it's like a real-time budget. And a lot of the decision support functionality is around looking at the impact of things that have either happened or decisions you're looking to make on the future. So it's looking at different ways to optimize your maintenance strategy. So it's very much a proactive focus. So that strategy optimization, examples of this would be, let's say every time you do a 250-hour service, it costs you 1,000 Rand more than what you had in your budget. Now, on a month-to-month basis, you might not pick that up on your actuals versus sort of budget cost analysis. But if you've got a fleet of 30 trucks and you extrapolate that out as to what your cost overrun is going to be for the next 5 years, suddenly that comes up with a big number. That's what AMT is doing, is it's highlighting those future potential variances and saying, well, you can save X if you maybe reduce your servicing costs. So that's just an example of the strategy optimization functionality. Other areas, the obvious one, your budgeting and forecasting. So it's got this real-time forecast. You can either look at real-time reports or take snapshots to save it as a financial budget. The contract management is a key bit of functionality, and this is really the old analyzer product that is now a module, or effectively the functionality is a module within AMT. So this is all around your MARC or your CSA, PM contracts. You've got billings. You're looking at your contract performance. There's financial reporting around those. That's that contract management module. Contract tendering is tendering for your MARC contracts. Component capacity management. This is a lot around forecasting your components, evaluating what's in inventory, and working out what's the optimal strategy around reman, exchange, etc., and producing that forecast for your rebuild centers, your CRCs. Product support marketing is a new module that we are just releasing now. So this is going to do effectively the sort of PTOS functionality, for those of you who know the CAT PTOS program, where it's going to look at your market share, both historically and forecasted, and provide firstly a high-level analytic tool, but also a tool for your sales reps, your account managers, to be able to pretty much live see what their market share is by customer and what are the opportunities and things. And then we have a rental module. So this is managing your larger rental fleets. And then sitting on top of that is a reporting sort of set of functionality. And that covers everything from sort of daily control type reports to your monthly reporting to an intelligence center where you can write your own reports. We expose a number of reporting cubes that users themselves can actually write reports and save them. So that's the footprint of AMT. I guess another way of just explaining it is to say what AMT doesn't do. So AMT is not a condition monitoring system, but we do want to get condition monitoring data in. It's not a productivity or a dispatch system, but we do want to link into the MineStars or modular mining sort of programs to get downtime and things in. And also any other system to get utilization in, whether it's Link 1 or something like that. But most importantly, AMT is not an ERP system. It's not an SAP. We're not trying to compete with SAP. So AMT doesn't have inventory functionality. It doesn't have purchasing. It's not an HR or payroll system. It doesn't have a general ledger. We are very focused on equipment management and being able to bolt into SAP. So SAP is the transactional system. AMT doesn't really do anything that's going to impact transactions and how they're captured within SAP. But we do want to integrate to SAP, and we'll talk about that integration in a few slides. So the second part, then, where does AMT fit into the dealer solution? And this is a very high level couple of slides on just where our focus is as a company. So we see that dealers are becoming equipment management companies. A lot of the dealer websites, I'm not sure whether the Barloworld has this on it, but often that sort of, you see dealers now having banners saying the equipment management company and promoting equipment management services. We see that's where the dealer's future is instead of just selling machines and parts and service. The dealers are moving more into actually managing equipment and working more closely with customers to manage and optimize the performance of equipment. And some of that is through mark agreements, but we see that there's going to be a much broader spectrum of arrangements or agreements with customers. And we've loosely sort of call these collaboration agreements, where you might not have a full mark, but you'll still be working with the customer to help them on their anything really, whether it could be optimizing their components, or even a small customer who maybe doesn't have a maintenance system. Maybe you just help them with their planning and scheduling of work. So we see this trend of dealers becoming equipment management companies, and going hand in hand with that, we see that the dealers from a sort of business intelligence perspective are really sort of understanding that the equipment is actually their real customer. So that's what drives the business. So there's been a big focus on CRM systems, which is good, but it's almost like there's another layer below that CRM, another level of detail, which is around the equipment, because it's the equipment that is driving the forecast and the requirements of what the customer needs in the way of parts and service and support and things. So that equipment intelligence layer, almost under the umbrella of a CRM, we see as becoming more and more important. And that's really what this slide is sort of depicting, is that you've got that sort of business intelligence layer, and there's the customer level, which is handled very well by a lot of different CRM systems. But we see that AMT would be slotting in into that CRM space, not competing with the CRM, but providing that next layer of detail around the equipment. So to bring that into one slide, we see that AMT provides a single equipment platform to support a number of internal and external processes. So firstly, AMT can consolidate data from any number of sources and all equipment related data. It's an equipment centric database where we can have knowledge about the equipment, your costs, your utilization, your downtime, the health of your equipment. That can all be contained within the one AMT database. And that then supports a number of processes. First of all, on the services, the equipment management services that you want to offer customers. And the starting point for us when we first built AMT was this first one, mining mark agreements. And that's a level of sort of service that you can offer, and that's right on the one end of the spectrum. Then there's the CSAs, PM contracts, cost cap agreements, rentals, and then, as I mentioned, the sort of collaboration agreements. And I'll just click to the next slide on this collaboration agreement, and we see that this is really going to be a big growth area where customers almost will be moving away from the mark agreements. We see that there'll still be mark agreements, but we also see that there'll be a lot of customers who want, sorry about that, want assistance from the dealer, but they don't want it in the form of a pure mark agreement. They don't want us to lose that control. So this is that whole do it with me sort of model. And there'll be many forms of different agreements. And the challenge for the dealer is to have the resources, the processes to be able to provide that full spectrum of agreements. So these are all your sort of customer facing processes. Internally, there's a number of processes that AMT will support. Component management, being able to forecast components, requirements, look at what's in inventory, and define that capacity management strategy. What's to be rebuilt, how much reman do you need, etc. And we'll talk about this one a little bit later. The product support marketing, I mentioned, account management, business planning. So AMT is sort of driving a lot of these internal sort of processes as well. And we see that this list will continue to grow as the level of intelligence or data within AMT grows. For example, with the equipment registered in AMT, AMT can forecast by customer what equipment is due to be replaced each quarter. So that would be useful information for your equipment sales reps. So we see that AMT provides a single equipment platform to support the dealer's business now and in the future. We certainly don't see AMT as just a contract solution. That's where we started. That's where Analyzer was. That's where we were maybe 5-6 years ago. But really the focus for us and the focus moving forward is around providing dealers with that broader single equipment platform. So how does that now fit into the scope of the AMT deployment for Barloworld? So there's 3 main areas of focus for the AMT deployment at Barloworld. The first one is around your mark agreements. And that really covers 3 sub-elements. The first is contract tendering, producing tenders and quotes for your mark agreements. Managing those agreements, that maintenance and repair process. So that's a real hands-on, on-site, producing your daily, weekly work plans, capturing downtime, your availability reporting, etc. And then there's your mark financials. So this is again that sort of analyzer space where you are looking at the financial performance of your contracts, your accounting, profit recognition, your maintenance accrual requirements, your statutory reporting around those mark agreements. The second main area is around EMP, and that actually goes hand in hand with the third area around the component rebuild forecast or CRC forecast, in that we really see it as one process really, where your sales reps are monitoring and working with the customers to forecast their component requirements. That forecast is coming to a central group that is then looking to come up with a strategy for delivering those requirements on what's going to come out of reman, what's going to be rebuilt, where's it going to be rebuilt, etc. And then the third bit is that by CRC they can view their future workload, what is coming at them, where's it coming from, when's it going to be due, etc. So we certainly see that the EMP and the CRC will be sort of combined as one. So AMT and SAP, you guys are going through a big SAP deployment or upgrade at the moment. Where does AMT fit with that? So firstly, AMT will be integrated with SAP. And we see that AMT adds value to SAP. SAP is your transaction system. It is your accounting system. AMT is not doing anything to interfere with that at all. AMT really sits on top of that, mainly gets information out of SAP, occasionally will trigger the initiation of transactions, particularly work orders within SAP. But apart from that, it's mainly getting information out of SAP, and it's providing that workflow management, decision support capability on top of SAP. So we don't see that AMT competes with SAP at all, rather purely we are adding value to SAP. So what are the integration points? So without getting into too much detail, these are the main integration points with SAP around that mark scenario, which is the most tightly integrated scenario. Starting at the beginning, when you register your assets in in SAP, they will automatically then register within AMT. So you don't have to register them twice. You register them as per normal within SAP. If they meet certain requirements, i.e. they're a mark equipment or they're an EMP equipment, then they will trigger to be created within AMT. In AMT, you will define your maintenance strategy. So this is coming up with your maintenance plans, standard jobs, your job instructions and things. The standard jobs, we have an interface to Builder, the CAT Builder program. So we can import those from Builder, or you can just create them directly within AMT. We do get a parts pricing update that comes from SAP to keep the prices of those standard jobs up to date. Having defined the strategy in AMT, we feed into the long-term planning process so that component change-out schedules, those are maintained in AMT, and that's really in that core lifecycle costing functionality. And that then feeds through into your short-term scheduling of work. Now, normally we have scheduling and planning here, but the way this works is this is the tightest point of integration with SAP. So this is where AMT is sitting very tightly on top of the SAP work order. So any jobs that need to be performed are first of all captured within AMT. So this can either come from your strategy, i.e. a PM service when it becomes due appears in the planning screen in AMT, or it can be a general defect that is just raised directly in AMT. At that point, the users will create a work order in SAP, and AMT will just trigger the creation of that work order. So the user doesn't have to manually go and create that work order again in SAP. The interface will create that work order in AMT. The user will do the job planning in SAP. So by that I mean they'll go and enter the planned labor, they'll go and order the parts, go through the same process they would for any other work order. They do all of that in SAP. SAP is feeding back to AMT what that planned labor is, the status of the parts, and also the costs that are associated with that work order as the costs get accumulated. And then finally, at the point where the job is closed, those costs will come through. once the job is performed, AMT sends back the status of that job back to SAP. So this isn't closing it financially, and I might be using the wrong terms here, but essentially AMT controls the status of the job, as in physically the job is finished, the machine is back to work, and that's what is sent back in this interface number 8. But the user will still go and financially close it off, i.e. where it's no longer sitting in WIP, it's now being, the work order's been closed. That still gets done within SAP through the normal processes. So you can see this area is the tightest point of integration. Other interfaces that we get, the contract billings will still be, that gets done within SAP, and that gets sent through to AMT. Now, the billings can either be at the equipment level or what we call overheads. They're billings for a site or for a contract. And we also get your costs coming through as in your overhead costs and a little financial reconciliation file, number 12. So those are the main points of integration, and that's for the mock scenario. Okay, I won't repeat all of this detail. These are all the a little explanation of each of the interfaces. Okay, thank you very much. So this concludes the first of the 3 segments of this presentation. We're saving these as separate video files just so that they're a manageable size, and so we'll open up the next file. Thank you.